The Eye of the World. Prologue. Dragonmount. The palace shook, the earth rumbled, and sunlight shone through the dust motes. Scorch marks scarred the walls and floors, with soot layered over all the once fine furnishings and tapestries. The dead lay everywhere, men, women, and children, struck down by lightning that had blazed through the halls, the fires that followed, or the fallen rubble. Lou-Therin Telamon wandered the palace, keeping his balance as the ground heaved. "Ilyena, my love, where are you?" he called. The edge of his cloak trailed through blood as he stepped over the body of a beautiful golden-haired woman, eyes frozen open in fear and disbelief. He continued to call for his wife Ilyena, asking where everyone was hiding, seemingly unable to see the bodies strewn around him. He sees his reflection in a mirror hanging askew and pauses. His clothes had been regal once, grey, scarlet and gold, now torn and filthy. A symbol on his cloak caught his eye, a circle split half white, half black, and knew it should mean something. He was handsome once, tall, with hair more white than brown now, and eyes lined by worry. He laughs and calls again for Ilyena. The air shimmers and a man appears, looking around in distaste. Clothed all in black except for white lace at his neck, he stepped around the bodies. "Lord of the Morning, we come for you." Lou-Therin turns to see him and exclaims over having a guest. Has he come for the singing? He calls for Ilyena to come greet their guest. The stranger's eyes widen in shock and dart to the blonde woman's body, saying, "Shaitan take you! Does the taint have you so far in its grip?" Lou-Therin shudders, saying, "You should not say that name, but does not finish. The man asks what he remembers, getting impatient at Lou-Therin to recall events, but he is distracted, asking his guest who he is, what he wants. Arrogantly, the stranger says he was once called Elan Morin Tedroni, but he is now known as Betrayer of Hope. Lou-Therin finishes for him. Elan comments that he does seem to remember things, such as his title, given to him by the people in scorn. The same people who call Lou-Therin Dragon, but after today they will call him Kinslayer. Lou-Therin frowned, then went back to wondering what could be keeping Ilyena. The ground shook, shifting the woman's body as if in answer, and Elan grimaced. He tells Lou-Therin, "Once you stood first among the servants, once wore the ring of the Tamerlane and sat in a high seat. Once you summoned the 9 rods of dominion, and now look at you, a shattered wretch. You humbled me in the hall of servants, defeated me at the gates of Paran de Sen, but I am the greater now, and if I let you die, I will make sure your last thoughts are in full knowledge of your complete and utter defeat." Still, Lou-Therin mutters about Ilyena not being there, how she would chide him if she thought he hid a guest to greet and talk their ear off. Tossing back his cloak, Elan Morin muses at the lack of one of their sisters to do this. Healing was never his skill, and Shaitan's healing is different, but will serve its purpose. "Be healed, Lou-Therin," he says, raising his arms, and shadows darken the light. Pain blazed through Lou-Therin, and he screamed from his depths, and could not stop. Fire and acid filled his veins as he fell to the ground, backwards in convulsions. His skull a sphere of agony to the point of bursting. So slowly that it felt 1,000 years had passed, he felt he could breathe again, and pushed himself to hands and knees. His eyes fell on the golden-haired body, and a new scream dwarfed all he'd made before. He scrambled to her, cradling her body in his arms, stroking her hair. "Ilyena, no! Light, help me, Ilyena!" he sobbed. Elan Morin offers Ilyena back to him if he serves the great Lord of the Dark who can resurrect her. When Lou-Therin raises his eyes to look at him, Elan Morin steps back. 10 years, betrayer, Lou-Therin snarls. 10 years your foul master has racked the world, and now this. 10 years, Elan Morin interrupts. This war has lasted since the beginning of time. We have fought each other thousands of times, and will fight until time dies with the shadow triumphant. He was shouting now, and Lou-Therin shrank back, gently laying Ilyena down on the ground. He stood, and with a voice cold as iron, told Elan Morin, "For what you have done today, there can be no forgiveness. I will destroy you beyond anything your master can repair. "Remember, you fool!" the betrayer shouts, cutting him off. "Remember your futile attack on the great Lord of the Dark. Remember his counterstroke. Even now the 100 companions tear the world apart, and each day more men will join them. My hand didn't slay Ilyena's son Hair. Whose hand slew every life that bore your blood? Everyone who loved you, and you loved in return. Not mine, Kinslayer. Remember the price of opposing Shaitan." Sweat dripped down Lucerin's face as he remembered. A dream of a dream, and he howled as a man who discovered his soul damned by his own hand. Everywhere his face looked, he saw the lifeless bodies of servants, friends, and his children. Sons and daughters sprawled like broken dolls, play stopped forever, all killed by his hand. Faces accusing him. He could not bear the pain and reached for Sidene, tainted as it was and travelled. The land was flat and empty. A river nearby, and no human life in 100 leagues. He was alone as a man could be, yet still could not escape his memories. Looking up, tears in his eyes, he screamed, "Light, forgive me!" begging for what he knew he could never receive. Still holding Sidene, the male half of the one power that drove the universe and turned the wheel of time, he could only feel the oily taint of the shadow, the taint that had doomed the world, because of him and his pride, in his belief that men could match the Creator, could mend what the Creator had made and humans had broken. He drew on the true source deeply and still more, like a man dying of thirst. More of the one power than a man could wield unaided. His skin felt aflame, yet still he pulled more, screaming again, "Ilyena! Light, forgive me, Ilyena!" The air turned to liquefied light and fire, striking from the heavens and would have blinded any eye in sight. Boring through Lucerin, it drove into the ground, stone vaporizing, and the earth quivered. The bar of light lasted only a heartbeat, but the ground heaved like a sea long after. Molten lava fountained, and the land rose higher and higher. When the wind died and the ground settled, a volcanic mountain stood, rising miles to the sky. The river was now split in two around a new island in its shadow, yet no sign of Lucerin remained. Elan Morin arrived on the island, staring up at the mountain in anger and contempt. "You cannot escape so easily, dragon. It is not done between us. Not until the end of time." Then he too was gone, and the mountain stood waiting, alone.